page, I'll click on e-procure, create requisition. Then click on add items and services. I'll click on the web tab and then the link for Georgia Virtual Catalogs. This will take me out to the SyQuest application, and you'll notice that I have 2 action items, which are the 2 carts that are assigned to me. So I click on action items, carts assigned to me. I'll see all of the list of all of the carts that are assigned to me. Of course, as a requester, I could go out and do my own shopping cart as well, and put things in my cart and submit them over to PeopleSoft as well. This webinar is basically going to walk through how to take an existing cart and pull it in. So I'm going to make the office supply cart my active cart, so by clicking on it. So it updates the amount up at the top and opens up the cart. I can see the 2 line items that were purchased. Also, as most of you know from the call that we had the other day, the NIGP code and the description for the line items that are on the cart will be listed on the cart as well. Okay, so you have the opportunity to change those. Hopefully, most of the time, it'll be a good NIGP code for things that came in through the catalog. If there are an item that you're consistently seeing bad NIGP codes for that, you can contact our help desk. We'll do it on the weekly calls for now, but once you go after our daily calls are over, you'll log those with the procurement help desk to get. We can work with the supplier to get their mappings done correctly for their NIGP codes. But you do have the ability to come in and change them on the cart. You'll click Proceed to Checkout. You'll be able to see the comments, and of course the attachments should be there as well. So if this is an attachment that you want on your requisition, it does not copy over to PeopleSoft, so you may want to go ahead and click on it and download it. Then you'll be able to, of course, if I'm using Chrome, that goes into my downloads automatically, and I'll be able to find it in my downloads from the PeopleSoft requisition side. I can view the history of the cart to make sure that everything, that the cart's been routed for approval properly. I'll have the ability, if I need to, if something's missing from the cart, I can go back to the, I can assign the cart back to someone else, okay, if it got missed. If they missed something out on the cart, I can assign it back to someone. You'll have that ability. But when I'm ready to pull it over into PeopleSoft, then I go ahead and I click on the Submit to Requisition. And then that just copies the cart lines from SyQuest application over into PeopleSoft. I then click on the Review and Submit page. And you'll notice that the cart name comes into the comments. This is telling me that I've got some attachments that were out there. If you don't want to keep this, keep this comment, you can delete it out. And of course, I've got the department fund source things that they typed into the general tab on the cart is there as well. First thing we want to do before we start making any changes, go ahead and click on Save and Preview Approvals. That's going to give me my rec ID number. It's real important that you go ahead, that you always save before you start making changes, because as we know, sometimes PeopleSoft may time out. You may get an error message when you're working on the requisition for some reason, and it doesn't allow it to save. And we do have a quick reference guide on how to go out and find a cart that's already been submitted and how to resubmit the cart. We have a quick reference guide on that, but it is more steps. It'll save you a lot of time if you'll always pull in the cart and go ahead and save it, save and preview it, get your requisition number, and then make your changes. I did send out a guide today as well as how to click on this View Printable Version. If you click on this View Printable Version, it will launch this box that asks me if I want to include the distribution details, I can say yes. So this will launch a new window that basically is just a report of the requisition. It's going to show you, and it actually got blocked. I need to enable this one on this machine I'm using. Try it again. So it'll just launch a little report that has basically everything that's on the requisition. It has the ID and the name and all of the comments that are in there. So this is where, if you want to move this off to another screen, if you've got it, to where you can see what they put in the header comments in case you need to use that information as you're entering in the chart fields. It's got what the current ship to in. All of these chart fields that are currently on the line, those are the ones that have come in by default on from the requester. And now I'll show you now how to go in and modify the distributions on this requisition. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the Edit Requisition. So because this was ordered from a statewide contract, there's already a vendor on the requisition lines. Okay, and let's say the first thing I want to do is go in and modify the chart fields for all of these lines. Click the Select All, which will click both of the lines, and then I'll click on the Modify Line Shipping Accounting. So you'll notice that on this page, it tells you right here that information below does not reflect the data in the selected requisition lines. Okay, so we already know that there's a vendor on the line, so we don't need to enter a vendor because this was ordered from a statewide contracted item. We don't need to assign an NIGP code because those were already on the lines on the cart. So just if I would put something here, if I need to modify what was already existing on the lines. Well, for most of you, you're going to use this page the most for loading or changing the chart fields. So the first thing you want to do is load your values from your defaults. So that means that's going to pull from what is on the requester what their defaults are. And you'll notice this is how I've set up my page because I want to see my account fund program, fund source department. When you log into PeopleSoft and go to this page for the first time, you're probably only going to see the account on this one page. So what I did is I went into my Customize and I found the fields that were further down and I moved them up underneath the chart field 1, and I rearranged them. And if there's things on here that you don't need to see, like, you know, we don't ever use a fund affiliate or things like that, then you can actually hide them, and they'll hide them from the page. But I moved mine up next to my chart field 1 so that they would be in the order that I'm comfortable with keying them in. Okay, I'm just going to go ahead and say OK. And you'll notice it doesn't show me, depending on how on the resolution of your screen, it's not going to show you all, and it doesn't go all the way out to the plus sign. You can scroll over and see in case you need to split out the distributions based off of a percentages. There's my percent, but yours will be probably at the beginning, which you might want to leave it there. Or you might want to, you know, if you're typically not splitting across multiple distributions, then you may move that over to the right, but if you're going to split a lot, then you may leave it over on the left. So to make the change, go ahead and change my account, and then and if I know this needs to be shipped somewhere else, I can go in and change my ship to location. And then I click on Apply. Do I want to make this change on all the distribution lines? I'll say yes or OK. And then that will change the chart fields on all the lines that I had selected. You'll notice right now I don't have all of my chart fields. They're all on the Chart Fields 2 tab. Or they're all on. But I can customize this and move them over to Chart Field 1. And you'll notice that it changed my ship to on all the lines. You can open up, that was line 1, this is line 2. And it changed it on all of the lines, changed the account. If I needed to take the attachment and put it on the requisition, I can click on the Add Comments bubble. Click on Add Attachment. Because I'm using Google Chrome, it puts it in my Downloads folder. And I upload it into the system. And I say OK. If I want to use this requisition name for something that's more meaningful, like for example, if I want to put in some of the shopper information, I could put that in here in the name. This requisition name field is a searchable field from the Manage Requisition page. So a lot of people do things, sometimes people will put the department number in there, or they'll put whatever, something that is meaningful about that particular request, they'll put that in the name because it is a searchable field when you're looking for requisitions if you can't remember the requisition number. Okay, so this requisition name field is just, you can use it any way that you guys want to. These comments, they are requisition header comments that will pass over to the PO. If there are comments in this that you want one of the approvers to see on the approval page, then you need to make sure you click the approval justification checkbox. So if you click that box, these comments are visible when the requester goes to the approval page. So I'm going to go ahead and click on Save and Preview Approvals. Brings me back to the confirmation page. You'll notice that now my requisition name has been updated, and this will have my approval path. Some of you will have an approver 1, approver 2, just depending on how your approvals are set up. Right now, I've just got on this requisition, I've just got an approver 2, and so it says currently it's not routed. If I needed to ad hoc someone into the approval process, I would just use the green plus button to bring them in. Again, this has to be somebody that has a PeopleSoft user ID. If I insert them into the process and I want to keep them in the process, I have to click this Apply Approval Changes. If I decide that I don't want it to route to that person, you can remove ad hoc approvers, but you can't remove any of the default approvers. So once I'm ready for this to be routed, I click on Submit, and it will send an email notification and a work list entry to the approver. So while that's saving, is there any questions on how to pull a cart over for a statewide contracted item? Okay. Once a rec is pending approval, you can run the budget checking process on it. Okay, so if it's open, it won't budget check, but once it's pending, you can run the approval process on it. We do get a question sometimes is who should run the budget checking process. The system doesn't care who runs it as long as it's in a pending status. We always tell it should be the person that knows that the codes that are on there are correct. So if you're getting a rec routed to you for approval and part of your responsibility is coding against the budget and you recode the rec, then you should probably be the one that checks the budget on it. Okay, I'm going to go back and pull over the cart for the non-catalog item. So I'll go back to Create Requisition. Add Items and Services. Web tab. And click on the Georgia Virtual Catalogs. I now have underneath my action items, I've got one cart assigned to me. I'll make that my active cart by selecting it. Again, if I need to return the cart, I can do that now. By clicking the return cart, it'll send it back to the shopper. If I need to change the NIGP code on the line, I can do that as well. It's easier to change it here than it is once it's been pulled over into PeopleSoft. It's a good idea then for you to scroll through the list of your items, check that before you pull it over. You can make changes, of course, to the description or any of the items, and it will track all of it on the history of the cart. You'll click on Proceed to Checkout. Again, I can click on the attachment, which will pull it down into my Downloads folder. I can see all of the comments that are in. And then I click Submit to Requisition. Pulls the line back over. Click on the Review and Submit. And we'll go ahead and click on Save and Preview before I make any modifications. Get my requisition number. If I want to go back now and make changes, for example, to the coding, I'll click on Edit Requisition. Now let's say, for example, that before I needed to look at something back on the cart, or there was another attachment on the cart that I forgot to get. Anytime that you're in PeopleSoft and you need to go back to the cart, you open up the requisition and you click on the line description. That's going to take you back to the cart, okay, where you can proceed to checkout. You could get the other attachments that you needed to. For example, maybe you need to review the history. You will notice now on the history that it's going to give this requisition submitted action. So that is the date and time that the cart got pulled over into PeopleSoft, was when that button got clicked, Submit to Requisition. Sometimes we get calls and we say, I don't have my requisition in this cart, I didn't pull it over and it's not there. Well, we can tell by looking at the history that at least it got submitted over to PeopleSoft. It may not have been saved and didn't give you a requisition number, but it did get submitted over to PeopleSoft. Once you're on this page, though, once you have pulled the cart over into PeopleSoft, you can't click this. You shouldn't click this Submit to Requisition again, because that would just try to copy it back over again, and you'll get an error message over in PeopleSoft. So once you've punched back out to look at the cart, and then you need to you can cancel the punch out, and that'll just bring you back into PeopleSoft. Okay. If this thing's completely messed up and you want to start over by going back, you can cancel this requisition, and then you can use the quick reference guide on how to go and resubmit a cart to a whole new requisition. So once the cart's there, you could go in and make some changes to the cart and do a whole new rec for it. Okay, and we've got a quick reference guide that Stacy sent out to everybody that walks through how to resubmit a cart that's already been sent over. All right, so that's just one note to get back to the cart. So you'll notice that, of course, this vendor, the best vendor ID is on there. And if I want to change that, I can either just select the one line, click on my Modify Line Shipping Accounting page. Before I put in the vendor, if I'm going to change the default chart fields, then I need to go ahead and just load my values first, because it wipes out everything on this page. And this is where I can go in and I can put in my vendor ID, so I can do a lookup. This is a lookup on the name. I'm just going to do Intuit. Try to find it. Sometimes this vendor search does take a while. I will go show you how to go to the, if you know the vendor short name, there is another page, or if you know the PeopleSoft vendor ID, there is another page that you can go to and put in the vendor information. That's just doing it line by line, versus this will do it, from this search, it'll do it for all the lines at one time. Just check my questions while that's running. Don't have any questions so far. Brings back the vendor. I select it. And then you'll notice that the location code, you want to make sure, so if it's going to be a non-catalog item to a non-statewide contract vendor, then the location code of 00001 should populate in there as well. If you want to change the NIGP code, if you didn't change them on the cart side, you could enter that in the category field as well. And of course, I'll walk through on the other cart how to change the distributions. So just apply them, and it'll apply this vendor to each of the lines. The other place to go and change the vendor is on this link called the line details. So that's where, if you know the vendor ID, you can type it in this field. So this is where it's at the line level. That other page is just where if you want to use the override. These comments need to be seen by any of the approvers. Click on the approval justification. And then I'm going to go ahead and click on the Save and Preview. And if the rec's ready to be routed for approval, I'll go ahead and click on Submit. Do you want to show you as a requester, you can come out to, if you're underneath, if you go to the navigation of e-procurement, manage requisition. When this page comes up, it's going to default your business unit. It'll have 7 days as the from and to date for the requisition. It'll have your requester ID in there, and it'll have a status of all but complete. So you'll notice that you'll be able to see basically all of your requisitions. If you want to see all of them for your business unit for a larger time frame, then you can come in and modify these dates. Okay, so this max scroll set up, probably I think it's set up to about 100 at one time, but you can narrow it down. Once your requisition becomes a PO, you can use this Manage Requisition search page. If you know your 10-digit PO number, you can put it in here, and then you would find the rec that corresponded to that PO. This is the requisition name field. So, for example, if I put in March and did a search, it's going to find just that one requisition that I did today. If I wanted to see everything that is currently pending, I would do a search for that. If I wanted to see everything that was in a budget status of not budget checked, I can do that as well. That's pending and not budget checked. So for example, let's say I forgot to run budget checking on this requisition number 928. Just from this drop down, this action, I can choose, I could cancel the rec for whatever reason. If I want to run budget checking, I just check the budget. If I need to go in and edit, I do edit requisitions. If I wanted that printable version of it, I can view the do a view printable version from this page as well. Just go ahead and just click on the check budget, and that'll run the budget checking process on it. Okay, so all requisitions have to be approved and valid before they can become purchase orders. Usually we get a few tickets every new go live of the rec's approved, but I can't pull it into, it's not coming up on the requisition selection page. Most of the time that is because someone forgot to run budget checking on the requisition. You'll notice as I run, this is running the budget checking process. As soon as it finishes, it's going to drop off the list now because it's no longer not budget checked. I'm assuming it's probably valid. Yep, and it comes up in my valid list. If I wanted to see requisition, let's say I wanted to see the ones that were where the PO was created. So PO created means the PO has been created. It's in an open, pending, or approved status, but it's not been dispatched. When the PO gets dispatched, it will go to POs dispatched as the status. If I want to see the PO for this particular rec, for example, this is one that I did this morning. I hit the chevron to open it up. And if I want to see the requisition, I can click on that to get a view. I can see all of the approvals that happened on the requisition, who approved it and when they approved it. And then if I need to get my PO number, I click on the purchase order link. And it'll have the corresponding PO number. Are there any questions on, from a requester standpoint? The next step I was going to go to is go in and approve the 2 requisitions. Are there any questions on how to take carts and change the chart fields or get the attachments or set them to pending approval or budget checking or anything on the manage requisition page? All right, very good. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and sign out. I had one now I'm going to log in as the approver. Two different ways to get to the requisitions to approve them. I can go to my work list by clicking on the work list link up at the top. All of the requisitions it will show, it will have in the link the requisition number, who it came from, who the requester was. Click on that link. I can, as an approver, I can come in, of course, I told you because I checked those justifications checkbox, I can see the comments that were put into that field. If I wanted to get that printable version that shows all of the chart fields, I can either click this view printable version, or I can do a select all and click on this view line details, which will show me all of the chart fields as well. It's the exact same, basically, report. If I need to make a change, I click on Edit Requisition and go back into the requisition and make a change to it. One thing to keep in mind is if you are an approver and you go in and edit a rec, let's say, I don't know how many approval paths everyone's got, but if you go, let's say you're the second approver, if you go in, edit the rec, and submit the rec again, it will go back to the first approver. But if you do a save and preview, it will save your changes and it will not start the entire approval process back over. Okay? So if you submit, that basically starts it completely over. But if you make a change and then do save and preview, it keeps it currently pending to you until you approve it. So I'm going to go ahead and just approve this. Sets it to approved. When you approve, it sends the requester a notification that the requisition has been approved. I'm going to log in because I had ad hoc myself in as one of the approvers. I told you there are two different ways to get to requisition. You can do it as your work list, or you can come underneath e-procurement, manage requisition approvals. You'll notice nothing comes up. We get a call sometimes and people say they're not there. It's because you have to click search for them to come up. One thing I like to do with a page like this, especially if you're an approver, and really anywhere that you're when you're in PeopleSoft a lot, is you can click on the Add to Favorites, and it will take this page and it'll put it up underneath My Favorites, so you don't have to do your navigation over in the menu a lot. Okay, if I wanted to make this my favorite page, I click Add to Favorites. That name comes up. I just say OK, and it puts it up into my Favorites folder. So I'm going to go ahead and click on. This was the requisition for today. Let's see, I'm going to sort it by today's date. I've got some old stuff out there. Let's select the rec. And approve it. So now the requisition has been completely approved. And so are there any questions on the approval process? Okay, still no questions? All right, I am also just happen to be logged in as the buyer as well. So if I am the buyer and I'm ready to take these requisitions and source them to become purchase orders, I click on Purchasing, Purchase Orders, Stage Source Request, and Requisition Selection. Actually, I'm going to put the pagelet on so you guys can see the pagelet so that we can do it from there as well. Okay. So if you're a buyer and you if you haven't put your pagelet on yet, I do want you to do this. If you go to your home page, you click on Content, and the pagelets are called the ePro Recs to be sourced or ePro Recs multi-origins. So if you're going to be doing basically all the recs in your business unit, then you'll do the ePro Recs to be sourced because that's all origins. But if you have ePro Recs multi-or, if you're going to break out your requisitions by origins, then you can use the Recs multi-origins and set up criteria for that. So I'm going to go ahead and just put them both on my home page. We'll make it 3 columns. Take both of them and move them to the right column. Go ahead and save. The first time you set up your pagelet, you'll need to go in and define your criteria. So for the Recs multi-origins, I'll click on the second link. It's called Customize ePro Recs multi-origin. Put in my business unit, which I'm 40300. I'm going to leave this. I can put in individual origins, or if I put the wildcard in or like origin, that would be all of them. I can set it if 30 lines is the default. If you want to make it more or less, you can do that. The more, of course, the larger the number, the longer it's going to take for the pagelet to refresh. And we'll go ahead and click on Save. It's now going to find the requisitions, all requisitions that are currently in an approved status. It's got the budget checking status on there as well. Tells you the rec, the date it was entered, the date it was approved, puts that requisition name in, gives you the origin on the rec, who the requester was, the amount, the budget status, whether or not a P card was used, and then currently who's defined as the buyer, and it also tells you the system source. So this punch out, that just means that it was something that was ordered from the catalogs, and you'll notice that this SQ form, that just means it's a non-catalog item. If I've got the ePro Recs to be sourced pagelet, I need to click on my Customize button for that. And you'll notice it's basically the exact same pagelet. It just has, it only has the ability to put in one origin. I think my origin is 001. And I'm not sure if the wildcard works for this one or not. I can try it. No, it does not. So oh, I'm sorry, it does. So it's got the, you can put in a wildcard. It'll show you all origins as well. So when I'm ready to take the requisition and source it to a purchase order, I'm going to take my first one, which was my office supply order. I'm going to just copy that requisition ID. Come over to my purchasing, purchase orders, stage source request, and then requisition selection. Go ahead and just make that a favorite. And I'll just paste in my requisition ID and do a search. It brings up the two lines. If I wanted these to be on separate POs, I would select it one time and hit save and hit click the second one, hit save. But most of the time you want them on the same PO, so you want to select both lines and click on save. Then that's going to stage the requisitions, and the process will pick it up and create the purchase order. And that runs, I believe, at 15 and 45 after each hour. If I come back now to my home page, refresh my pagelet, you'll see that that requisition is dropped off the pagelet. Then if I want to get the next requisition for my non-catalog item, take that requisition ID, go up to My Favorites and click on Requisition Selection. Of course, I could do that. I could have two windows, do a new window, and have my home page in one window and not have to navigate back and forth. This is where I bring in the non-catalog item. You'll notice here that the vendor is in here. I have noticed that some people are sending the rec completely through the approval process with the best vendor in there. You can do that if you want to. You can come to this page and then do the lookup from here to assign and look up the vendor ID. That's the short name lookup, and do a search based off vendor ID and vendor short name. So you can come to the staging page and override what the vendor is for the non-catalog purchases. You can do that on the requisition selection page. It is all right to do that. You can also use the search criteria. Like, for example, if you want to find all of the ones that have a particular vendor ID, you can narrow them down from that as well. If you take this requisition and select it and then click on the staging information, and we sent out a guide last week for how to send it to a reserved PO number. You can click on this user assign ID, and as long as you reserve the PO to the same vendor ID as the requisition ID, then you can do a lookup and you'll find the PO in this list. But the vendor on the PO reserved has to be the same as the vendor on the rec. So that way these requisition lines just get built into that PO number. Some of you that are buyers, you're used to seeing this page. It's basically the line page. If you wanted to go ahead on the header details and put in that you know this is going to be a PO type of an open market purchase, you could define it here and not have to do it on the purchase order. So the PO will get created with that PO type. If you notice on this page that you needed to change one of the chart fields, you could do that do it from here as well. And the changes then when the PO gets created, that will be on there. But you will notice this is line by line. So if you needed to change 5 lines, you would have to scroll over here to the different 5 lines. So it might be easier if you've got a multi-line requisition to do it once the purchase order gets created and use the PO overrides. But if everything looks okay, you just go ahead and click on Save. So I'm going to go ahead, and that's how you stage the requisitions to become purchase orders. So I'm going to go ahead and just run the process, and then I'll go look for any questions. So I'm just going to run a batch process that runs at 15 and 45. We don't have access to run this in production manually. So are there any questions on how to take the requisitions and source them into a purchase order? I haven't had any questions. I hope that they can hear me. I would hope. No questions? Okay, so this process is still running right now. Almost done. So when your purchase orders get created, they will initially be in an open status. So if you go to Purchasing, Purchase Orders, Add Update POs, and then click on Find an Existing Value, one of the things I like to do is go ahead and put in my drop-down Open, and then I can save that search criteria. For example, if I want to say My Open POs, and save it. And you might want to put in, for example, your buyer ID. So then instead of every time me coming and having to fill out this form, I just pick it from a drop down and it fills it out automatically. If I wanted to have one that said, all right, let me see all my approved, I can save search and do my approved POs. So I just pick my open, it runs my criteria. I can say my approved, it runs my criteria. So my open POs. So these POs got created. I'll go ahead and click on the 4241. So it opens up the purchase order PO in an open status, not checked. Vendor, of course, is there. You'll notice that this EDX method is available. So things ordered from that were virtual catalog items or items that are for statewide contracted vendors done on a cart, they will have a dispatch method of EDX. This environment, this training environment, still has this grayed out. In production, it is available to change, but we request that you do not change the dispatch method for EDX POs unless you're going to do a change order later on. I want to talk about that in just a minute after we get this dispatched, or get one of. I'll find one that's already been dispatched, and I'll do a change order on it. But things ordered from the virtual catalogs should be dispatched via EDX. You'll notice that you click on the header details. This was one of the ones where I did not change the PO type on the staging, so I have to come in and change my PO type. So this would be a statewide convenience contract. Go ahead and click OK for that. And then I'll just save the PO. Purchase order now has the ability, if I click on this requisition, I can see the requisition number and open that up in a new window to get to see the details of the requisition that it came from. The comments got copied from the requisition over to the purchase order. Any attachments that were put on the requisition line will be down on the purchase order line. The attachment got put on, I can view it from here. Once I'm ready to approve, or since some of you have on PO approval, I just click the box to approve it. Goes to pending approval. Some of you are set up for yours to automatically go to an amount approval. Go ahead and just approve that. I'm sorry, I didn't finish it. Go through the approval process, and then of course you will leave purchase orders that are EDX in an approved and valid. You'll run the budget checking process on it after it's been approved. You'll leave POs that are for EDX POs, statewide contract suppliers from the catalog. You will leave those POs in approved and valid budget checking, and a process will run and pick those POs up and send them to SciQuest, and then SciQuest will send them to the supplier. So you should get an email confirmation when your purchase order has been sent to the supplier. You'll get an email telling you that your order has been sent to the supplier. Of course, that's not going to happen on your shoppers will also get notification that their cart has been put on a PO as well. But that is only for statewide contracted vendors. Of course, the ones that are non-catalog items, you'll still dispatch those the way you were before. Okay, I'll go pull up the other PO. So I'm just going to use my Open PO search. You'll notice for this PO, if I click on the header details, I had already marked this on that staging page to an open market purchase, so it's already got the PO type on there. And I go through the same process of setting it to approved and then getting it budget checked. And then, of course, for these, I'll dispatch these purchase orders. One thing we do get a question a lot of is if you need a copy of an EDX PO because you won't print those, you want to get a copy of that PO. If you need a copy of that PO, at the bottom of the PO, you'll click on View Printable Version. So if I click on the View Printable Version, that gets me a copy of the PO. And you can go out to your report manager to get that. Okay? So we've had some people, some recent buyers where the dispatch method is EDX. They're changing it to print and dispatching it and then setting it back to EDX and wondering why their supplier didn't get the order. Well, it's because you dispatched it via print, and so they didn't get a copy of it, and you didn't send it to them. It's not going to go pick up, the process is not going to go pick up a PO that's already been dispatched that has a dispatch status, even though it says EDX. So leave the EDX ones as approved and valid, and then they'll get sent out to the supplier, and you'll get the confirmation. If you want a copy, again, you click on that View Printable Version, and then if you go out to your Reporting Tools Report Manager, on the Administration tab, you can get a copy of the PDF. So if you just click on it, that'll launch the PDF version of the PO. Okay. This environment's not set up for that. Didn't finish running, but it'll be a PDF copy of the PO that you need. If you need to do a change order, so I know that a lot of you, if you get billed for something, it's a few pennies different than what the purchase order was done, and you needed to go in and do a change order onto an EDX PO. You can make your changes to the PO, go in and do your change order like you normally do to the PO. You do, however, want to change the dispatch method from EDX to print. Otherwise, you run the risk of sending that PO back out to the supplier. And most of the time, you're just making a minor change to the PO that you don't want the supplier to know about. You're just doing it really for accounting purposes or to get it paid by the the exact amount of the invoice. So when you do a change order, you're going to, on an EDX PO, change the dispatch method to print, so that it doesn't get sent back to the supplier again. Most of them will reject the PO because it's the same PO number, but we have had some suppliers fill the order again because they got the PO again on a different date, even though it was the same PO number. So the best way to prevent that from happening is when you do change orders on EDX POs, change the dispatch method to print. So are there any questions on the PO process? All right, that's all that I was going to go through the webinar. Again, this will be recorded and distributed in the next few days. So thank you for your time today.